Gasparini, and welcome to this segment of Penn Voice. I am joined today by Wally Jansen, who is the chairperson of the funders of Encore Books, which is located in the San Mateo County History Museum building. Wally, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for having us.
I'm so excited to have this discussion today because you've got some fun stuff happening at Encore Books.
We certainly do.
And your organization, the funders, who
Right.
are this great group running Encore Books. So first tell our viewers a little bit about the funders, of which you're the chairperson.
Okay, they were started about 40 years ago by a mostly group of women in San Mateo who, when the museum was still located at the College of San Mateo, and what they had was basically a cupboard in the back room somewhere where they would save some books for people to riffle through and buy if they were interested in that. Slowly, that expanded to a shelf by the door when you came into the museum. And then eventually we I joined 33 years ago, so I go fairly far back in the history of this. We would have events like the Victorian days in San Mateo in the park there, and we would put all the books in boxes and then set them out on tables during the Victorian days and sell that way. And ultimately, though, we didn't really have much success in terms of that. The volume was very low, and we got more books than we could sell. But Burrell Bank offered to host us, and on Saturdays, occasionally, we would have big sales there. Ultimately, though, the real step forward for us was coming to Redwood City, moving the museum to the old courthouse,
right.
and grabbing the basement for our store.
Right.
And the rest was really very successful, and we now have a huge store. I say huge, it's about 2,500 square feet. We have about 30 to 35,000 books.
Right.
And we've organized those books by topics and then by author, and we have display tables with pop-up exhibits and everything. And the trouble is that people just don't know about us.
Well, we're gonna change all of that. So as soon as this program airs, there'll be thousands of people
That's
flocking
what
to Encore Books in the
bet.
basement of the San Mateo History Museum.
Okay, that's what we're
And we
really
should say
looking
that the sale of your books
Yes.
do, in fact, support
Yes.
the History Museum.
Yes.
Important fact.
Yes, we're all volunteers, and all the books we have are donated, and all the funds we generate, down to the last penny, goes to support the various programs of the museum. And the one that we particularly like and support most enthusiastically is the one for children in the county. All grade schools in the county have an option or a choice to come to the museum and have their students see various things that happen there. The museum has history exhibits that range from pre-Western arrival, so it's all Native American material, all the way through the Spanish era, the mission era, the Republic forming, and then the grand estates that happened in the 19th century when San Francisco became a big city. We have exhibits of furniture and paintings and items from that era, from the big estate homes. And then ultimately we actually get into entrepreneurs and how San Mateo County served as a place where people would live and work in the city, which of course continues to this day. And we describe the commuting process.
Right.
And so there's really a full range of materials for the, now that I think about it, we even have a thing on surfing. And in fact, Mavericks, when they have Mavericks on, often will appear, and there's a setup where you can pretend to do surfing in the museum itself.
That you've just described the History Museum so well, and it gives all of our viewers the understanding of why the bookstore is so important, because you support all of those exhibits that you just talked about.
Yeah.
Have you ever had an experience where someone has donated a book or a book came through that you've now put into the museum because it is in itself an artifact?
In fact, that is one of the important things. the people will call us up and we solicit donations, but how that gets around, I don't know. But it's not unusual for us to get a call once a week that somebody will say, oh, I've got too many books, can you come and get them? Or can we drop them off? And so on. And so then what I'll end up doing is going to somebody's home and then assessing, well, this is going to take 10, 20, 40, 50 boxes of books, and I will then bring them back to the museum. And the first thing I do, in fact, is to look through, well, there are two things that I do. If there are books that are damp or incomplete or smelly, damaged, then we will actually recycle them in the paper recycling. But then as we're going through, immediately I will notice if there are things that pertain to San Mateo County history. And if that's the case, whether they're maps or whether they're books written by authors who lived here, or whether they're about different things in the museum, in the county, then I will approach the archivist with those and ask if we already have such a book or map, whether they would like to accept those. And so if that is the case, then there'll be accession there.
And then when you come across the very odd items of collections being brought to you, such as our coconut friend, where might you catalog this piece?
Well, you know, this only came in on Tuesday, so I haven't fully decided what we're going to do with this. As I said, we have exhibits that reflect current events often. And so right now we've got a big thing on the Oscars, and all the several of the tables in the store have things pertaining to movie stars and individual movies and things that we have books about, posters about, anything that we have that pertains to that to enliven it. Now, mostly those things are not sold because they will be used again the following year or so. I should add that one of our senior members creates all these tables. It's truly amazing. She was a grade school teacher starting about 70 years ago, more than 70 years ago. And she still has that wonderful handwriting that you see. And so all the labeling and so on is done by her live. And what I think will happen with this is, because it's from Hawaii and it indicates that on the labels that are on here, we may, when we do a Pearl Harbor thing or so, we may show this as part of, this is what Hawaii was and then became real historically.
Right.
And so it brings people attention to things. And so having a coconut on the table is always
And we should let our viewers date it. It was mailed in 1975. So I think that's, and it was coming to Kenyatta. So I think that's a great story. But you also talked about previously that when the books come in, they obviously go into catalogs or into categories.
Right.
One of the fun things that you and I were chatting about is you have something called a weird shelf.
Yeah, we really do. It's very easy to categorize books that are obvious, like cookbooks or history books, or, and I'm looking around my store as I think about this, novels, or, and we divide them up, hardback and softback and so on. We have a huge section on mysteries, particularly in paperback section. But yeah, so we have a category that really sort of is outside the bounds that we can't define who would be interested in this or where it belongs.
And would that be How to Build Your Missile book?
And so, yes, we did receive, and I think this was about 12 or 15 years ago, a detailed manual on how to refuel intercontinental ballistic missiles. And so I was a little concerned about this initially because I thought, well, what if this is really classified material? Should we destroy it immediately? And I thought, no, well, we shouldn't really do that. It didn't actually say that it was classified, but then the cover had been removed, so it was a little iffy.
Right.
But then it turned out within a year or two, we had this great opportunity. People in the county will often offer space that they have as a thank you for the volunteers or to draw attention to the museum. And it was Jacques Littlefield in Woodside, where he has a tank museum.
Right.
And so I ended up going there, and I thought, this is the perfect recipient for this book.
Terrific.
And he not only has tanks, but he had ballistic missiles.
There you
I
go.
don't think the intercontinental ones, but there were certainly
You found
missiles.
a great home for it.
Yeah, and he was thrilled because, you know, what can you expect?
Terrific.
When you've got everything, then you get something like this.
Yeah. Well, Wally, we're out of time.
Oh.
Gosh, we could go on forever talking
Yeah.
about Encore Books and
Yes.
your location of the funders. We want to thank you so much for your 33 years of volunteerism, reusing our books that are classics and allowing the public to come and be a part of that in funding the museum. So thank you again, and we'll see you next time. You come back and tell us more about your books. We'll see you guys next time on Penn Voice.